Hi, I'm Ben Bingham. I'm just going to be showing you how to make a pretty large community compost pile. I'm using this Pfeiffer compost starter from JPI in Floyd, Virginia. And I took half of this for 3 tons and I soaked it last night. It needs to soak for at least 12 hours. And this has millions of little bits of bacteria in it that accelerate the breaking down of the compost without a lot of heat. So it's different from organic compost in that it doesn't get up to a really high temperature, but it has all this action in it. And we're going to be using the water from the roof going down into the rain barrel, and we're going to stir this into it and then spray it as we make the compost pile. This is the garden. So here's the biodynamic compost starter in a paste form. I'm going to stir it into the rainwater. It's about 3, maybe two buckets full. There's no exact amount. It just needs to be enough to mix this all in and spray on the compost. So we're going to try it with this amount. It's a nice silver spoon and ceramic bowl. Don't want to waste anything. And then I'm going to stir it with this paddle. Make sure it gets all mixed in really well. All the biodynamic preparations, well, a lot of them, the field spray and the 500, get stirred like this into a kind of a vortex to draw the universe into this special mixture. Create some chaos. Brings a lot of oxygen into it. You see the bubbles. We're not going to do this for very long. Some of the preparations we stir for a whole hour. This one we just need to make sure it's all mixed in well. So we strained it. Make sure it gets through the sprayer here. We're going to walk down to the compost pile, which you can see I've got a big elder tree there, elder bush, and that's big partly because it grows right next to the compost, and it puts a lot of its hairy roots into the compost. It helps aerate it. So we have here some rye straw that I grew over here. I just flailed the grain out of it. It's not very much, it was a small plot. Then I have a bunch of municipal leaves that have been breaking down for about 3 years. Normally I don't put leaves in a compost because they tend to stop aeration. But after they're broken down, they're almost like soil already, so it just gives more volume. Then I have some old compost, stuff I've collected over the last year that's older. Over here, I have the bananas that I grow for the compost, but also just because we like these. And then fresher kitchen compost, weeds and grass that we've grown from side, adjacent field. And then right over here is about 1.5 tons of horse manure, and then some just topsoil that I made a pile of, so scraping the area. It's good to mix soil into each layer of the compost. This is where the compost was the last, 7 years. So there's always a lot of life in the soil, and it was on a slope, so it's a little bit, I want to make it a little bit more even. So I'm going to just pull some of this down. What's important is that you build the compost into the topsoil around it, because the life in the topsoil the worms and everything will come right into the compost. There's a lot of worms in here. You don't really have to grow worms, they just come. The word of the day?
Yeah.
Compost. Everything is compost, you know, nothing's wasted. Everything can recycle. This is everything that grows in the garden, everything we eat that's left over goes in here. Every time I'm weeding, I'm thinking, I'm not worried about, it's not like a hard thing to do because I think it's just going in the compost. It's all good. These sticks on the bottom, and then we can start loading it.
This is how you eat a blueberry.
We're gonna start now. That's the bananas. It's heavy, but it's really good. So you see we got a good starting point here. It's like fairly level, a little bit up from the ground, but it's still connected to the topsoil around it. And so you see we got a good starting point here. It's like fairly level, a little bit up from the ground, but it's still connected to the topsoil around it. And we're going to now start putting in layers of the newer compost and bananas and manure. Maybe I should just say, you know, the thing you're aiming for in compost is to get a good balance of carbon and nitrogen. Carbon is what structures everything. It's not the bad thing that we're making it out to be. Carbon is an essential thing for all life. It just needs to be in plants and not in the air and in the soil. So we're going to make different layers because they interact with each other. The nitrogen carries the life in a more like the quality of things. Nitrogen is, in German, it's called Stickstoff. It's sticky. It's all the protein that sticks to the plate when you're washing dishes. It's the sticky thing. It's the thing that smells. So when you smell methane from your gas stove, you're smelling nitrous gases. So that nitrogen is really important for life too. So these two things, carbon and nitrogen, that we make into really bad, actually in the right place are perfect. So we're getting a good mix of the nitrogen and the stick, the carbon kind of stocky stuff that's not full of life anymore. The sources of nitrogen, every plant has nitrogen in it, so when it's green still and alive, it has nitrogen in it. It has protein in it. People think protein is just in seeds and grain and meat and things like that. Everything that's alive has nitrogen in it. We use the kitchen compost. When it's fresh, it's full of nitrogen. When it's old, it gets more and more mineralized, and then it's more carbonaceous. I'm just spraying the biodynamic compost starter on this layer. Just putting millions of little microorganisms into the compost. It's the best source. It should be used all over the world. We want to come right up to the edge on everything. So we're building a structure here. This is the carbon that creates structure in all living things. And this also has, it's still a little green, so it's got some nitrogen in it, but it's mostly stalky. But when you get higher, like if you want to get up to here, you have to have this kind of thing in it, otherwise the whole thing will sink down too much. In the end, you want a pile that has the ratio of the golden mean, which is like, if you look at window panes, they're always shaped with a pleasing proportion, but it also is a good proportion for organic interaction between all of the elements in the compost. So it's not too fat, it's not too thin, it's not too, like a hot dog, or it's just, I don't know, a pleasing ratio of the height to the width. This is about 5 feet. I didn't measure it, and it'll be about 4 feet tall when it's finished. And then the length of it can go on for a long time. Like the community in Egypt, Sechem, that makes manure compost with 1,000 cows in the middle of the desert, and they've transformed the desert with this kind of compost, which is very similar size grasses for the bedding for the cows mixed in, and then having the biodynamic spray, and they have a whole field of compost that goes all over Egypt. So all the biodynamic cotton, all the a lot of produce. They feed 1,000 workers and 1,000 children every day from a place that was growing nothing before, and it was just because of this compost and the other biodynamic preparation. They've gotten all kinds of awards, as they should. Okay, so we're putting now more of a nitrogen layer in. I'm gonna just keep moving things around to keep the form. The horse manure has just got wood chips. It's not ideal. It would be better to be cow manure with straw bedding, but it's all I could get in the area, and it's good. Horse manure is good and hot, so it'll heat up the compost. When it interacts with all this stuff, it'll get maybe a little too hot. We have to watch it. Yeah. Okay. So let's get some more of that. Yeah, that stuff. It's good. Again, this is to build a structure.
There's lots more because we can't keep it in the refrigerator. Maybe it's a good idea to cover it.
You can pour the rind in the compost pile. Let's keep going with the manure and the next layer. So this gives you an idea on how to build a compost with a group of people. That we haven't put the municipal leaves in yet, or our really old compost stuff to mix in, but we'll come back with the finished pile,
Leave it running.
which will have straw on the top, and I'm going to cover the pile. So we're just going to keep spraying every layer and keep building this up until it's got kind of nice, pretty upright sides all the way around and up about this high.
And I mean, the leaf, you don't have to have leaves.
No, I normally don't use leaves, but these are so broken down that they just add to the bulk of it, and I want to have a big enough pile so that it really works. Otherwise, we just use the leaves as mulch in the garden. Farm, every location is an individuality. Every farmer and gardener is an individuality. Your community is individual and different. So every compost pile is going to be made up of different content. The main thing I was just talking about is the ratio of carbon to nitrogen, but if you don't have, you can't grow rye or bananas or other things. You just try to find what you have locally. I love Lynn Twist's statement that resources appreciate in value when they're appreciated, and one way that you can appreciate the resources you have around them is if you think that they're kind of useless and a waste, and then you realize that they build up your compost and they turn into beautiful soil with this method, the appreciate them and the value appreciate. So that's the concept.